they were all killed. They were all beheaded, shot, burned, hundreds of them, and then hundreds more women and children sold into sex slavery by Boko Haram. That's the government you want them to trust?
They came back, and the government has its own responsibility. The responsibility of the security and the safety of citizens and their property depends on the government.
States, Donald Trump, this Congress are going to make historical decisions regarding the future of Nigeria. And there's a narrative of war. Speak up, call your...
issues. What if one of the most important geopolitical stories of the next 50 years is unfolding in Nigeria, and most of the world isn't paying attention to the epicenter, and that is in Nigeria? In the epicenter, our guest makes that case. Today, we're going to hear from him the arguments he put forth, examine the evidence that he gathered, and thinks that this evidence is the right answer to determining the future, and also ask what it means for global security, mineral resources, and the Nigerian diaspora. However, we remember the world is at the crossroads. Iran is exploding. And how could that be connected to Nigeria? And if his studies have anything to show about the relationship between Nigeria and Iran. Mike Arnold, you are welcome back to the Beyond Africa podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to have you because the conversations we have are focused on one thing, problem identification and then solutions. And you've written a book, The Epicenter, which we are discussing today. Can you walk us through that book and what made you to write this book at this time?
Absolutely. I've done a lot of podcasts with sharp people like yourself, asking a lot of good questions. Not just in Africa, not just in the diaspora, but on the U.S., a lot of American-focused interviews, conversations, etc. And I found that certain things that I know, you never know what you know that's valuable to somebody else. Sometimes you could, and I'm telling these stories, I'm reciting some of the historical facts, and it's blowing people's minds. And it's not like theory or conjecture, it's history. But I realized that just to save myself time of having to repeat it all the time, I should just put it in a book. Interestingly, along the way, I found out the nation of Nigeria didn't teach history to the school children for 15 years until just end of last year. So for those that I'm working with, a lot of young influencers there that pick it up, and this was just in the draft form, they would say, wow, this finding their birth certificate for the first time, an adopted child learning who his parents are. They don't know their history. They don't know how they came to be. They don't know why is the nation messed up like this? Why is it? And when they understand the history, it totally opens their eyes. It's amazing to see them come alive when they learn that. And so that further compelled me to finish the book and get it out there. It's filling a vacuum in Nigeria where people just don't know who they are. They don't know their identity because they don't know their history. And I didn't set out to write a history book, but there's a lot of it there.
Somebody watching us now is probably wondering why Nigeria will not teach history in their schools. Every country deserves to know their history, isn't it?
Well, I'll give you the corollary, and then I'll go back to the reason. The corollary is this. At the end of last year, the president, who's a brutal totalitarian, soulless dictator, if I might put it aside, he implemented a new history curriculum, first time in 15 years. And I looked it up. First of all, you can't access it. You have to be behind a paywall, and you have to be a teacher or an administrator in the government program. But all of the news about it had consistent talking points, 3 or 4 points. They all said, and all seemed to originate with Reno Omokri. So there was nobody that reviewed it. There was nobody that looked at it. They just said, oh, great, we have a curriculum. Well, I kept digging, couldn't find a listed writer, couldn't find a publishing company, but I found who was in control of it. The president put together a panel that's writing the whole national curriculum. The head of that panel, his claim to fame, his credential, he literally wrote the book named The Islamization of Knowledge. That's who's in charge of the new curriculum, and that's who's now teaching history, Nigerian children. And that's important to know. That's the reason they cancel it in the first place, is because the truth about Nigeria's origins, even the Constitution, it does not bode well for a stable regime, because when the people find out the truth, they want to tear it all down. Because it has insidious roots. Their constitution, written in 1999, was written by an outgoing military dictator who was a Muslim warlord general from the north, wrote the constitution and said, here you go. And that's what they're using for today. It mentions Islam 165 times. And not
Before you go further, you just mentioned that you've told the story about Nigeria in different instances, and you keep on repeating the story and you're putting it in the book so you have it in one place for everybody to have it. I invited you here not to discuss a story, but what I wanted us to go through is the decision logic that pushed you to do this. And one of those things you've mentioned already is the fact that history was not taught in Nigerian schools. And you've also touched on the fact that the person who wrote this book is the author of the Islamization of knowledge. And that seems to be a problem to you. And you also mentioned that the president is a dictator. I wanted us to touch, first of all, on the accusation on the president. Is Nigeria's president a dictator?
Absolutely. I'll just give one case in point, the case of Nnamdi Kanu. I'm not a Biafran separatist. I'm not against it. I sympathize with it. They make a great case. I'm not taking a position on that. Let's push that to the side. Nnamdi Kanu was a British citizen, Nigerian citizen, 2 passports. He was broadcasting from England things that a lot of it was in my book. People tell me that my book is really just the things he used to say. It's just history. It's fact. And the Nigerian government didn't like the things he said. He was visiting Kenya. He was abducted, tortured, and illegally rendered into Nigeria. The Kenyan government protested. The international community protested. He was put on trial under a law that was long since repealed without a continuation clause. There was no law. His attorney kept asking the judge, excuse me, sir, what law are we using here for this prosecution? And he never got an answer. There was no law. And then he was sentenced to life in prison and transferred to Sokoto in the Sultan's backyard, where he's currently wasting away right now. Persecuted for words under a law that didn't exist, illegally abducted and rendered, and thrown into a dungeon in Sokoto. I don't know that you need any more evidence, but that is flagrant. There is no law that's been followed. That is abuse of law. That's tyranny, period.
I've not heard where the president came in here. In pages.
The president controls everything. He's the final boss. The Senate doesn't cross him. They rubber stamp everything. And he plays the power game. Whoever he can't bribe, he threatens. And the people on the inside that are around the edges of the inside, that used to be on the inside, say he's the sleaziest thug that they've ever seen. I mean, everywhere he goes, he's a thug, he's a dictator, and he's a criminal.
This is somebody who was elected into Nigeria's presidency 3 years ago.
Out of 230 million people, he got 8 million votes. And even then, it was totally irregular. There's never been a fair election in Nigeria since they've...
Do you know any country that has ever had free and fair elections? United States, 2016.
There's a difference between
24 complaints.
No doubt about it. No doubt that voter tampering and all stuff happens, but not where they go in with brickbats and they threaten, people die. Governor Donald Duke, who's a former governor of Cross River State, that was a whistleblower on this. He documented in 2010, it's the same technology, methodology they've used from the beginning. It's a concerted, the idea of an election there is a joke. And even if they had an election under this constitution, the constitution gerrymanders it so the North has all the power. Even if it was a free and fair election, the North would always prevail. The way they set up the states and the local government areas and all that stuff, it's tilted to the North. They have the power. The South could carry every vote in the South and get all their people elected. The North would still have the upper hand because the way the Constitution is written.
Goodluck Jonathan is a former president.
Come on, he fell into that job. He was the token Christian stooge. He was a governor, but he didn't even earn that. He fell into that job. So he fell into being a governor. They plucked him up to be this token Muslim Christian ticket. They put the Christian guy on there that didn't have any experience at anything. And then the president gets sick and dies right before the next election. He got in there. It was against their plan. And that's exactly why the jihad started. Why all the stuff's going on was because Goodluck Jonathan was in office and he wasn't supposed to be. Why everything you're seeing today was because of that.
And it's 3 mandates now after him. And we have a Muslim who is a southerner
You really think that Tinubu's even Muslim and you think his wife's Christian? First of all, if they wear that label, that's their branding. I don't see any evidence that either of them is observant to either faith like that. They're more like Ahab and Jezebel than they are President and First Lady. He's a power broker. He knows who calls the shots. He knows where the money is. He knows where the power is. He knows who will kill you if you look at them sideways. He knows how to. He's the one that very instrumental in getting Buhari in office to begin with. So I know that he's a Muslim, but he certainly throws his favor to the North, perhaps 100%, because if he didn't, he'd be gone because they have all the power.
But Mike, you agree that in every geopolitical entity, call them countries or jurisdictions, there are certain sections of those countries that have political weight. For example, in the United States, a Democrat president knows where to go to and a Republican president knows where to go to.
It's not about demographics or politics. Ultimately, it's about, if you want to get into it, it's about the ideology of Islam. I'm not talking about the Muslim religion. I'm talking about, people need to understand this. Christians have Christianity. It's the aggregate term of all Christians, right? You name have their church body. Islam is not the church body. It's not the religion of Muslims. Islam is to Muslims like the mafia is to Italians. It is more than just religious stuff. It is a governing system. It's almost like an organized crime ring. They got the bosses and they got their enforcers. And it's very cult. Once you're in, you never get out, period. And anybody that's outside it is you can kill them and it's okay. This
conversation towards this tangent, but let me ask one question on that.
That's why it's important. The North, that ideology is 100% about domination and control. They cannot coexist. They will use everything because it's who they are, to take over. It's to subjugate, to tax the jizya tax and all that. Nigeria is an Islamic republic. And
why would you think of this regarding Nigeria? Next door in Cameroon, we have Muslims who operate and cooperate very well with Christians, and some of these Muslims,
because the French
in Nigeria, they worship together. In fact, they're family.
The French don't let them get away with too much in Cameroon, but in Nigeria, that's why Nigeria is the epicenter. Back up just a little bit, history. The founding of Nigeria really started in 1804 with Usman Dan Fodio and the Sokoto Caliphate. That he created the largest pre-colonial empire in history, the Sokoto Caliphate out of Sokoto, Nigeria. And he did it through jihad. 250,000 people killed, millions enslaved, radical Sharia. That was established in the early 1800s. That's the way the British found it. And the British didn't undo it. The British co-opted it through indirect rule. They kept it intact. And when they gave Nigeria its independence, they kept it as in control. Those are the enforcers. Those are the ones that allow Great Britain to keep looting the resources because they're taking. When the South tried to get their independence in 1966 and 1967, the British formed a blockade and starved 3 million Southern children to death to keep control in the North. The caliphate was never undone. The 20th generation heir of Usman Dan Fodio is still on the throne. And that's what has the control of modern Nigeria. Is that power structure that started with jihad, and the jihad never stopped. Every time, if you look at Nigerian history, that the South or a Christian leader get any kind of upper hand, that's when the fangs come out and the jihad begins again. You get mass slaughter anytime that people in the South get uppity. That's just the reality. That's history. That's fact.
Since you are talking about the historical happenings and you're calling them facts, I want us to talk about this because it's mentioned in your book as an authoritative source. Can you walk us through the steps you use to verify your sources? Because you're talking about 1800s.
A lot of it is, I'm not using any obscure source. If you would have picked up a history book in Nigeria before they banned history, there's no secret to any of this. So I'd have to remember, I've got quite a few citations in the book. And it's just after 15 years of studying this, it's just here's this book. I've been studying this for a very long time, and you can chase every citation in there. I encourage you to do it so you can learn more. There's a whole lot more background there that you need to learn. But nobody on either side of the aisle has challenged any of the historical assertions that I've made. That hasn't come into question. It's just whether that's a good thing or not is the difference of opinion. The Muslims don't challenge the fact that the caliphate is the basis of Nigeria and that it's still in control. They're proud of it. So, no, it's the historical in my book. They're just challenging whether it's good or not.
Which Muslims are you talking about? Because you've tried to make a difference between our religion and others.
Forgive me, thank you. It's a good clarification. I, as a notable influencer now, never set out that, but I push followers that are extremely engaged. If you look at my statistics, my engagement, just the raw numbers, is higher than a lot of people that have millions of followers. People, they read my posts, they respond to my posts, and a lot of them are the other side of the aisle. The people that think this is good, the people that defend the slaughter, the people you can tell them because every single person that has a Muslim name, I can tell you where they're coming from because they're attacking me not for the historical that I'm speaking it or they're defending it. I posted about Deborah Samuel the other day, this girl that was stone beaten and burned to death for saying Jesus is the greatest in a WhatsApp chat. And I've got people logging in to say she deserved it. That's what she got. She should have known better. Because we're the religion of peace. You don't speak against us or we have to kill you. And it's consistent, which is the exact mindset that Muhammad had. They're just following his footsteps. I'm not making this up. Read it in the Quran. This is their real system.
You just said you are an influencer and you have a huge following and the interactions are quite significant. Yeah. And that is the sole reason I'm pushing hard on this, so that those who read you and those who understand or who hear from you form an opinion as to whether your sources are verified and backed or not. So
nobody's questioning any sources or any of my assertions of fact. They just question whether it's good or bad. But nobody's questioning about whether that Amadou Bello said that upon independence that Nigeria shall be the estate of our great-grandfather Usman Dan Fodio. No, he was the guy in charge. Nobody questions whether he said that. It's known. Difference of opinion is whether that was good or whether that was bad. I think it was bad.
If you think it's bad and they think it's good, what is the problem? Both of you have opinions.
Sure, but they are ideologies that cannot coexist. One side says, if you disagree with us, we have a right to kill you. And if we don't kill you, we'll just keep you suppressed, we'll tax you, and you can just keep doing what you're doing. The other side is about freedom and equality for all. The other side is about fair elections and fair trade and coexisting and loving your neighbor. They do not coexist. There is nowhere on the planet since the dawn in 1400 years where this type of Islam has taken root and hasn't stopped without either taking full control like Iran, being stopped with physical force, with a war. It has never been stopped. It is an aggressive expansionist ideology. That's not an insult. They're proud of the fact that the black flag of Islam is going to fly over every nation on earth. That is their goal. That is their purpose. That's why their heart beats, because Islam means submission. They want to bring the world into submission to Islam. Great. That's what they want to do. But that includes killing me and killing you if you don't agree. That's where we can't history. Nobody has been able to coexist with that ideology without one side or the other being killed. It has not happened in 1400 years, and it's certainly not happening in Nigeria today. If you look at the people being slaughtered as we speak.
I don't want us to really to get the violence and the definition of the violence or the perpetrators of the violence, but I want us to look at what you say in your book. You make it very clear in your book that you'd visited Nigeria since 2010, and you started talking out publicly about this about a few years ago. What made you to make that change between being just the humanitarian on the ground, documenting the facts and talking about it at some point?
Well, it was 2019. I didn't know what was happening. Most Nigerians don't still, because the government lies, suppresses people, kills people for speaking up. And that's a fact. There was a 2021 when I was to film a documentary. There was a documentary crew right in front of us from France, from Israel. They were arrested, put in a black site, and tortured for weeks until the Israeli government got them out. And their crime was making a documentary film. And so many examples of journalists arguing with me saying, oh, no, there's not IDPs. They're homeless vagrants bums. That's what the government says. So that's what we report. And I've seen it. I've seen my own words being, when I give a press conference, and it's changed from displaced person to rural community. They've sterilized it. Nigerians don't know about it. So 2019, my 10th trip to Nigeria, took an accidental detour in the middle of Abuja, the capital, and I ended up in an IDP camp that the government denies exists, the UN denies exists, but they're there. And guess where they're from? This camp, they're from Ngoshe, the community that was wiped out earlier this week. That's where they're all from. And I promised to tell their story. And the more I researched, the more I dug, the bigger it got, till I realized that I was standing in the middle of the epicenter of radical Islam, communism, and globalism as three snakes wrapped around the neck of the people of Nigeria. And so I got to talk about it. That's what God's called me to do. I got to shine the light. And because somebody has to.
Somebody watching us now understands that you had this detour to the camp in Abuja and saw the situation out there. But the person should be wondering why you had been in Nigeria, visiting Nigeria consistently for about 10 years, but that did not strike you at a particular moment. Why only in 2019?
That's a good question. I was having a love affair with Nigeria, to be honest with you. When I first went there in 2010, it was by accident. All of this is just God pulling me places that I didn't expect to be, but ended up in Nigeria. And it took a couple of weeks. I was there for about a month before I realized how much I really related. In fact, I felt in a lot of ways. You take away the superficial stuff, I felt more at home there than I do oftentimes in the United States, because the value and the character of the people is so strong. Their faith, their integrity, their entrepreneurism, their honor, their education, incredible people. And I feel honored to call them my friends. And so I kept going back, doing more lighthearted stuff, traveling around, doing different ministry activities. I was in Abuja in 2011 when Boko Haram blew up the UN headquarters in town. I was there in town when it happened. But it was such a random occurrence. It was such an anomaly. And you'd hear reports of this or that or the other, but it always, to me, I couldn't put two and two together. So I just sort of compartmentalized it. It was an anomaly until I stumbled into that camp. And it opened my eyes to the reality of what's going on. And again, it wasn't immediate. It was, the more I dug, the more places I went, the more people I'd talked to, the more history I read. And I'm talking meeting from presidents on down. The vision, the reality became crystal clear. And so I've been trying to raise awareness of this for a long time. No one heard of me until October of this year, when the government gave me a platform. And I used it to tell the truth. But even most Nigerians don't know that the people living in that camp down the road are displaced people and not vagrants. They don't know that because the government lies to them continually.
In your book, you say you've met presidents, ministers, clerics in Nigeria, and you have discussed this issue with them. Nigerians in the diaspora, even at home, watching us now, are wondering what they tell you, because your outings in the recent past have cast a picture of someone who appears not to have had any communication with the government, because you kind of speak off.
Interesting. For example, it was in May 2024. That was a crazy trip. I went to Bokos and all over. And that was not long after the Christmas massacre. But good luck, Jonathan. I was sitting in his living room of his home in Abuja, and we were discussing these things. And he leaned in, and he's the one that revealed the whole blood mineral connection to me. He said, "Look at the minerals; they're looting the minerals." And he pointed me in that direction. Sure enough, I've researched it, and it's certainly true. So they've all given me little bits and pieces. And I'm not going to ascribe this trait to any individual, but the general reality for most Nigerians is they live in fear. That even if I were to get out there and speak the truth, what would happen? Because they wouldn't let me, or I'd be killed, or it won't go anywhere. People have tried before. Nobody's ever. Nnamdi Kanu was the last one that tried to tell this truth and tried to get pay attention. And he's in prison in Sokoto. They compare me to him because I'm saying the same truth and I'm saying it boldly. And they haven't abducted me yet. I keep looking over my shoulder. But I get a lot of people behind the scenes saying, "Thank you, keep going," keep high-level people. But they'll never come out publicly and say it because they're scared, and they should be. And all these people are going to be wiped out. Tinubu, they're all going to go to jail or worse. Anybody that speaks up now, we better finish this because there's no going back.
Let's talk about finishing this. Are you scared of going to Nigeria right now?
I've been advised against it. I don't know that they would let me in. If I do go, it'll be either with a congressional delegation with U.S. Marines contingent, or it'll be sponsored by somebody with enough clout and visibility that they won't touch me. And I'll go, and I have to go big. I have to go with media. I have to go with live streaming. But if to show up and go walk down the street and go get suya, it's never going to be able to happen again. That aspect of my love affair with Nigeria, the freedom to walk around and all that, it's over forever. I'll never, until this is done, until there's a new Nigerian regime that's top to bottom.
I ask this because I note the contradiction in your book. When you were invited for the press conference, you got in there and you say you wrote your will, you revised your will before leaving, you had your last dinner with your family before leaving, and you are ready to let everything go, and you sacrificed everything and did that. Then again, you say going to Nigeria now is never going to be something that you could do because you're not going to enjoy.
Look, if God called me to do it, I'd do it. God called me to go on that last one. That's why I went, and that's why I had peace of mind. It wasn't me being foolish. It was me picking up that cross and asking God, take it up from me. And he said, no, this one's for you. So I went out of obedience. I'm not a fool. I could fly to Nigeria tomorrow. They may not let me in with a visa. They may arrest me at the airport. And unless God told me to do that, I'd be a fool to do it. What I want, I plan to go back, but what I said is the precautions that would need to happen for me to go back if I ever intended to return home. I want to, and I plan to, and I will at my earliest convenience. I want to travel to Sokoto and meet with Nnamdi Kanu. I'm going to do that. So that's a ballsy thing. So don't say I'm not afraid, and that I'm just wise and I'm obedient. That there's a difference.
Is God not calling you now? Someone who is reading Psalm 95, and which says that if you hear the voice of God, harden not your heart. Is God not calling you now to go talk to those you are critiquing on this issue and have a face-to-face conversation with them, like the Sultan of Sokoto, to understand how this can be resolved?
I will reach out. In fact, when I go to Sokoto to visit Nnamdi Kanu, I will start by requesting an audience with the Sultan. Sure, absolutely. I would love to sit down with him. I don't think he'll do it. I've been very aggressive in knocking that guy to peg. He's well, we won't get into it, but I don't have any respect for him.
Is that aggressiveness not a contributing fact to hardening the position that they and the Nigerian government can be taking? If you had taken a middle line to see to it that both sides can listen to you because you are speaking God's word here.
I'm speaking God's word. I'm going to keep speaking God's word. And you know what? I have met, Yusuf Tuggar. I had very good chat on WhatsApp. Mohammed Idris Malagi, the Minister of Communications. So Tuggar is Minister of Foreign Affairs. I met Minister of Communications. Same, chatted with him, talk on the phone from time to time. Same, I can show you chats with Nuhu Rabadu and Akpabio, the Senate president. Yes, I've tried from the beginning to point these issues out, saying there are displaced people in your backyard that need help. When I met with Tuggar and Rabadu and all of them, I'm here to raise the awareness of the displaced. They need attention. They need help. They're right under your nose. Why aren't you doing anything? I've done that, and they don't care. You don't understand. They don't want to have a fair. They're just trying to get rich and powerful. That's all they care about. They'll grind.
We here, they don't care. But what did they tell you when you proposed solutions to this?
They smile and nod. That's what they do. They smile and nod. I was in a room not long ago with Issa Pantami. He's a known terrorist. There's nobody that disputes the fact that he publicly declared, of course we all celebrate whenever unbelievers are being killed, that he said, Osama bin Laden, better Muslim than me. He's even, Mokri used to call him a terrorist. I sat in a room with him, and you know what? He's the most charming, thoughtful, eloquent, warm human being that you'll ever sit down and have a conversation with. But don't you dare turn your back. He's presided over stonings for blasphemy, according to a lot of literature and reporting, when he was an imam on a college campus. So these people, you meet a terrorist, they're not always yelling Allahu Akbar with wild eyes. Sometimes they're saying, hello, friend, how are you? That doesn't make him any less bloody.
I understand how deep you've gone with this, but my question comes back to this. I have not heard what they actually tell you when you talk to them. That is what I want to hear. That is what the guests also understand.
Oh, yes. I remember I talked to a high-ranking representative in the Congress that, yes, we must form a committee and look into that. Oh, yes. It's sanctimony. Look at it this way. First of all, there were 0 IDPs when the APC took power. They were just starting. The jihad had just started when Jonathan was deposed. And he was deposed. And now, 8, 9, 10, 11 years into it, there's anywhere from up to 10, 12 million displaced. All of it under this one party rule. There was not a mass slaughter. Now there's as many as 125,000 Christians that have been massacred, slaughtered like goats. That's happened under the watch of this regime. They're not two different administrations. Tinubu helped Buhari get in office, and then Tinubu took over, and he's changed nothing. The displaced are still there. All he has to do is recognize them. And the United Nations and the world community, the World Food Program, Samaritan's Purse, they'll all rush in to take care of them. The money is there, the mandate is there, the will of the world is there to take care of these people. If he just says they exist, and he's had 3 years to say they exist, you can't say that this isn't on purpose. You just can't say it. And them saying they don't exist is genocide by international law. They are guilty of genocide.
But the government of Nigeria does recognize that there is, they call it insecurity, and they recognize there are victims of insecurity, and they are taking care of them.
Are you kidding? Let me tell you how they take care of. First of all, there's some camps that are the ones that you allow the NGOs to know exist. I'm talking about literally countless unofficial camps that they deny exist. There are the ones that are formal. Those are hellholes. I mean, you get into that is horrific. But let's use Ngoshe, for example. Ngoshe in Gwo's LGA in northeast Borno State on the border with Cameroon, northeast Nigeria. Ngoshe was first overrun in 2014 by Boko Haram, and the people scattered, over 100,000 people scattered that are still displaced. But a chunk of them made it into Cameroon and were able to stay there at a camp in Cameroon. A bunch of them made it to Abuja and elsewhere. They've lived in that camp in Cameroon for a decade. In 2024, Tinubu and Rabadu came out proudly saying that we have defeated Boko Haram. We won. It's over. We defeated them. We cleaned out this Sambisa forest. They've been encouraging those in Cameroon to come home, and their aid was cut off and all that. Recently, the Borno state government paid them to come back. About $300 per family to come back. They got back, and you know what happened this week? They were all killed. They were all beheaded, shot, burned, hundreds of them, and then hundreds more women and children sold into sex slavery by Boko Haram. This is the government taking care of them, paying to come back to be slaughtered? That's the government you want them to trust?
They came back, and the government has its own responsibility. The responsibility of the security and the safety of citizens and their property depends on the government. And this is absolute government failure, because I know that there was this massacre in Ngoshe on the border with Cameroon last week. And
our sister church was burned, and we can't get in touch with the pastor. We had a congregation there. The only church, it was built by a military chaplain a few years ago in the military cordoned area in Ngoshe, More Than Conquerors Assembly. And we've lost contact with them, and we have a report that it's all destroyed. So this is personal to me. I can show you. I've been trying to WhatsApp this pastor, and he hasn't responded. So don't make this statistics. These are human beings that had peace and prosperity and purpose and family and everything. They've been an idyllic little community that has been over a decade of horror because of this government. And now they're all slaughtered because of this government. Don't make this statistics.
What I want to hear from you now is the Boko Haram crisis is nothing new to anyone who is watching us now. But the approach has changed, and the government of the United States is paying attention to it. When you analyze how the different governments around the world are reacting to this question, what conclusions do you draw? Because only one government, and that is the government of the United States, is paying attention to what is happening in Nigeria.
Well, again, first of all, the government of Nigeria, Nuhu Rabadu, who's supposed to be the national security advisor, in charge of national security. I call him the NSJ, National Security Joke. He had his phone bugged recently, the National Security Advisor. Pretty incompetent fellow. But he came out the other day and he said publicly, he said, these terrorists, they're not terrorists. They're our brothers, and we need to negotiate. We need to talk to them. The victims, they are grinding down, bulldozing their homes, neglecting and all that stuff. We don't care about them, but the killers, they're our brothers, and we need to rehabilitate them. That's the Nigerian government's perspective. Screw the victims.
Now, what about the other governments around the world?
That's over a decade of policy reality. You cannot show any facts otherwise. That's just reality.
What accounts for the fact that governments in other countries that always pay attention to human rights violations in other countries are quiet about this? I'm thinking about Germany, France, the UK, Canada.
Well, part of the problem, unfortunately, first of all, it's Africa. And Europe divided up Africa into their own little zones in the 1800s. They have their own little piece of the pie that they're responsible for. Britain is responsible for setting the table for this. They drew the borders. They put the North in charge. They nationalized the minerals so they could keep looting them. And they enforced a blockade that starved to death 3 million children there. They're the engineers of all this. They're not going to speak up against it. They don't want the truth to come out. And then you got the minerals. You got the fact that Nigeria is one of the top 5 oil producing countries on earth. You got over $1 trillion or so in mineral reserves. You got China that's in there deep. You got Russia that's in there. You got Iran that's been playing around the edges for sure. Why would they speak out against it if there's no gain for them? And if you're going to go against the globalists, the communists, and the radical Islamists, you're picking a fight. Only Trump's got the balls to pick that fight. Everybody else is kowtowed.
I want us to break this down a little bit. You've mentioned blood minerals. You've mentioned the British benefiting and China and Russia getting in there, and the globalists also benefiting or lacking the courage to counter this as it is. Why would presidents of other countries lack the courage to call out what is visibly atrocious?
Well, we're part of the reason I'm passionate about it, and the reason I'm so forceful about it is because I've seen it with my own eyes. The government of Nigeria just recently knew the same national security joke that calls terrorists his brothers and gives them AK-47s. That's on the record.
Against the national security advisor.
He's a joke. He's a criminal and he's a joke, and he's a thug.
What are your opinions about him? But
it's pretty objective. I mean, I encourage him to sue me or prosecute me for slander because truth is an absolute defense. And I can back up everything I'm saying about the crooked fellow, the incompetent guy. The national security advisor had his own phone bugged. It's shown he was giving AK-47s to Miyetti Allah, which the U.S. is sanctioning for terrorism, and he was giving them AK-47s.
Why is the U.S. not sanctioning him? He was here recently to discuss with.
That's the thing. That's the challenge we're getting back to. The narrative. He just signed a $9 million check to hire a lobby firm in Washington, D.C., not to get aid, not to help, but to counter claims of genocide and to manipulate people. That's why
the government of the United States has enough intelligence to at least...
The United States gets it.
As you say, why is it not sanctioned?
Obama helped make it happen. Obama wanted to get Buhari in office.
Was about 10 years.
Obama is a globalist, and Biden continued that. Biden took him off the religious persecution watch list.
Biden was president for 4 years.
And now Trump's back, and he's doing something about it in his first year.
Why has Trump not sanctioned him? He's actually giving
here's the challenge. The way I see it, and this is I'm trying to read the tea leaves here, but I see how Trump works. He's got them in line. I think he's got evidence on all of them. Including Tinubu, and there's 2,500 pages of DEA files that a federal judge has ordered released, but the government's been holding off on releasing them. And Tinubu was involved in major drug dealing in Chicago. Nobody disputes that. There's 2,500 pages of court documents that Trump's holding on to. I think that's leverage. I think somebody's got to be there. They need a warm body, and if they can hold them by the short hairs and get stuff done, they're going to do it. So I think that Trump's got his hand around the throat of those people, getting him in the line. And until there's an alternative, so what I'm calling for Trump is simply do one thing, and that is ensure free and fair elections in Nigeria. If he were to do that, people would pull this down. And I think that the leverage that Trump has on those people, he would release it pretty quick. I think those files would come out pretty quick. And he'd do to this regime what Obama did to the good regime of Jonathan. That's why I think that they're still there and they're not in jail. What's he going to do? He throws them in jail, then what? It took a long time to build up and get the infrastructure in place to be able to go grab Maduro. He hasn't been focused on Nigeria that long. I think he's building the case. That's my opinion. When he sets his mind to something, he gets it done. He set his mind to ending the Christian genocide, and it hasn't stopped. It's only gotten worse. And so he's going to do something. It's going to be dramatic, and it's going to change the face of Nigeria for the better, I believe.
Let's see what happens. I just want viewers to understand that your allegations are yours and your opinions.
They're fact, but they're my facts, sure. I can verify it.
Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are joining us now, you're watching the Beyond Africa podcast with me, your host, Ngalim Bernard, and my guest, Mike Arnold, we're discussing his book, Epicenter. And in that book, you mentioned the Nigerian diaspora as one of the most critical engines for, not only for Nigeria, but for Africa and the world. Can you tell us why you think this diaspora is critical?
And they're not just for Nigeria. I have begged to send missionaries to the 90 for a very long time. Wherever Nigerians go and relocate around the world, including the United States, they emerge to the very top. And it's not in a way that they assimilate. They're model Americans. They're the most patriotic model Americans, Nigerian Americans. And they succeed. They're known, recognized as among, if not the most educated and wealthiest group in the United States is Nigerians living here. And it's through assimilation, it's through thriving, through education, through hard work, through entrepreneurism. They contribute to the culture. It's amazing. And you see that everywhere they go. Imagine if that same energy, that same character, that same entrepreneurial spirit could be unleashed back home, where they're resource rich, where there's a large employment pool, where they have ports and where they have a beautiful country. Imagine if that spirit and the desire of most diaspora people I know is to either go back or sow back into Nigeria. They want to see that happen. They're just being strangled out of it. They're not allowed back, and practically speaking, because the totalitarian control of this evil regime. A lot of them, I will say, are very intent on separation, the Biafran movement, which, again, I fully sympathize and I understand. I'm just strategically not taking a position on that either way right now. But it makes they don't engage a lot because of that.
When you say you're not taking a position strategically, but you empathize, any person watching us knows that you are in full support of that movement, right?
It's not my place. I am in full support of people being able to choose their own course and a people group not being yoked to an evil government. Now, that said, my case has been, and this is where I stand, don't break off now would be foolish when you have this regime there with their controls. And for all the good people keeping that in check to pull back, you would have, I mean, come on, you got Al-Qaeda, you got the radicals there, you got Sheikh Gumi and the Sultan and all that, to give them their own nation without any balances and becomes the Sharia jihad country next door is not a good idea. No, Biafra would never have.
It's your logic that the Biafrans should stay in Nigeria and police them all?
First, uproot the evil. And it's for one thing, it's about messaging. Here's the reality. You go to Washington, the important doors, a lot of them, you walk in there and you say they're Biafra, their eyes go over and they close the door because they've heard it like a broken record nonstop forever. People that I can understand that. So to go in there and talk in the middle of this crisis and this conflict and the U.S. involvement and start talking about that just muddies the water. It's a confusing issue. Progress is being made. Don't derail it. And if you go into these doors trying to talk about stopping terrorism and trying to talk about bringing justice, and instead of talking about that, you just say Biafra, 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 you're not going to get anywhere. So table it just chill it. Let's take out this evil regime. Let's wipe out the terrorists. Then you'll be free to chart your course in peace.
You make this case in your book, you make this advice in your book, but you don't explain it in detail. You don't give out these details in that advice. Why did you hold this piece of information from the book?
This is my strategy, and I'm very open with it online. I was writing a book not as a policy briefing for Biafrans, but as a background information for the average person. I didn't put forward an argument. I put forward a balanced argument. Here's the position of the Biafrans, and here's the other side. I want people to make their own conclusions. I didn't write a propaganda book. I wrote a resource. If I would have said, here's my strategy, that I didn't think it fit there. It wouldn't be a resource book at that point. And it's being used as a resource book at Harvard University, I'm told.
Do you think somebody who reads this book from the north of Nigeria is not going to consider this a propaganda book?
What are they going to dispute? Maybe my POV, but I say up front, I say I'm a Christian. I use Christian terminology. I can't separate myself from that. That is my POV on the historical fact. They don't dispute the historical fact. They just don't want people to know it. They don't think it's wrong. They're proud of it.
Let's come back to talk about the Nigerian diaspora. As you are aware, and you have alluded to this already, the Nigerian diaspora has different ideological or different political points of view regarding all these issues we have already discussed. Do you think that for some reason, some of them could say, we share this other view and we go with this view for the time being to attain a particular result?
I'm finding that, for example, there's a group that was formed that did a rally in Washington on December 1st, and that has become the basis for a coalition. And I very clearly insisted up front, day one, my involvement was based on this. Let's do a covenant of common cause and spell out why this group exists and what we're trying to do. And it did spell out restoring the displaced, stopping the genocide, the things we can agree on. And it specifically says this is not a forum for advancing the cause of Biafran separation. You can have those conversations on the side, but don't wear those T-shirts to our events. And we don't sanction one side. We're not taking a position on that. And they're joining. As long as you step up with the ground rules and lead, they'll follow. And I think they're getting it. I think they're seeing the progress. We'll see. I'll stand by this. I think that any group should have the right to serve their God and live in peace without another group coming along and killing them. I think actually that what should happen is a new Nigeria should simply eject the Sharia law states.
We're going to talk about the Constitution.
The good people have to leave and let the bad people have control.
We're going to talk about the Constitution because you mentioned the Constitution in your book. Let's talk about it in a moment. But about the Biafra question, talk about Save Nigeria. The movement you're talking about, I believe it is the Save Nigeria group. I hosted Stephen, the president, recently. People from other parts of Nigeria, Christians from other parts of Nigeria, part of this movement that is working with people in DC.
Yeah, absolutely. It's growing to be a broad-based and going to be a broad-based movement. We have Nigerians from all over. We have Nigerians from Middle Belt, different tribes. In fact, one of the spiritual leaders of it is a Fulani man. Isa al-Bumba is one of the elders of the organization. He's that grew up as a Islamic jihad imam, and now he's a Christian. But yeah, he's a northern Muslim.
You told me earlier on that if you are a Muslim and you leave, you are going to be killed. But you are now
survived. Last time I talked with him in person was in April of 2024. I visited him in Jos, and he had survived 9 different assassination attempts, serious ones. He's marked for death. He walked. If we walked down the street back in his hometown, I'm sure they'd kill him quick.
You don't need a visa to live from the north to Jos.
What I'm saying is he lives in Jos now, and he's survived 9 different assassination attempts. He has heavy security wherever he goes because he's marked for death because he's a former Muslim. It's the reality, but he's a Fulani man. That's one of the elders of our organization. So it's very broad-based.
That needs some verification, isn't it?
Well, the covenant of common cause is, we've allowed, certainly we'd work with Muslims that want to help stop the genocide. Haven't found one yet, but it's not a Christian organization. It's an organization for justice and peace.
When you title it Christian genocide, are you not automatically excluding Muslims from that movement?
That's what it is. It's when you speak the truth, it is what it is. It's a Christian genocide. So should we soften that so that we can be more?
I am not giving you an opinion. I'm just asking. Doesn't the name of Muslims?
Well, let me put it this way. The Holocaust in Germany, that was a Jewish genocide.
Of course.
Right? What about the gypsies? They killed gypsies too. They rounded up. Why did you call it the gypsy genocide? Are you trying to exclude gypsies? No, it's vast majority. 100% of the time, the killers are Muslims. First of all, yelling Allahu Akbar. So let's not get that wrong. It is a one-direction genocide. Now, those same people also kill the moderate Muslims, the apostate Muslims, the ones that don't do jihad. They kill those too, and they displace them. I have a school that I run out of great personal sacrifice in an IDP camp in Abuja that serves exclusively Muslim children.
We've had this conversation. Let's not litigate that again.
Of being biased,
I'm not accusing you.
And I would love to work with anybody who's against the killing of anybody to stand up and stop it. But it is what it is. It's a Christian genocide.
My problem is the name not excluding others automatically. That is the question I'm asking.
The Save group, how is that exclusive of anybody?
The cause.
Save Nigeria group.
What is the cause of
the Christian genocide? Should an atheist want to stop the Christian genocide? Should a Buddhist want to stop genocide? Of course they should. Just like Christians wanted to stop the Jewish genocide. Genocide is bad. What's wrong with naming it accurately? I don't get that.
Nobody says it's bad in naming. The question is it inclusive?
It's inclusive. Absolutely. Anybody that wants to stop the Christian genocide is welcome to join. We would love to work with them.
Whether you're a Muslim or a Fulani, you are welcome to join. Is that what you're saying?
We have a Fulani is the elder of the group, the spiritual elder of the group is a Fulani Christian man.
So within that same movement or within the diaspora, there are Nigerians who say there is insecurity, but it doesn't amount to genocide. We are not litigating the definition here. Do you see such people coming in to join the movement because they recognize that the security question is intense, is horrific, and needs a solution?
I haven't seen any hindrance to our growth. We're trying to accomplish certain things, raise the awareness, get the attention of the White House and the State Department, raise the awareness of the media, counter the narrative war. We're not out to be this monolithic group that everybody joins. I don't keep track of who's joining and who's not. This is what we're doing. If you want to help us do it, come and join up. But we're not trying to build an organization. It's a coalition. Save Nigeria Group, it has its own organization, but the coalition is broader than that. And anybody that wants to join, we would love to have them join. And if they don't want to join, I don't care. We're still going to do what we're doing. We're not trying to please everybody. We're trying to accomplish what needs. We have a short window to do it. We're in the middle of a narrative war. And I'm telling you, if Trump turns away and the world turns away, the government's already said that anybody that said the word genocide is going to, they've indicated will be charged with sedition. And that means killed. And so they're going to purge anybody. They're keeping notes. They're tracking people. Anybody that's speaking up, when they get the opportunity to do so, word on the street is they're trying to wait till Trump's out of office. And then they're going to do a backlash that'll make the Biafran war look like child's play. Just wait and see. We got to stop it.
So that is a projection. And
absolutely.
The reason I ask this question around this topic is because most Nigerians, or say most Africans, recognize that there are problems with governance in the country. And sometimes when one group identifies a path to the solution, some groups tend to hold themselves back. Just for clarity, are you seeing that as Nigerians are coming together to get a solution to this problem?
What I'm working on, though, and see, that's the thing, where I'm different. I'm trying to steer it a little different. The fact is, it's easy to build someone through grievances, but that's not sustainable and it's not beneficial. You have to point them out. You have to speak the truth. You have to call out. The Bible says, expose the fruitless deeds of darkness. But that's not how you win. That's not how you change things, is through negativity. It's through a vision. And it's through the vision of what do we want this to be? What's possible here? And I think most would agree that Nigeria has an enormous potential of possibility. And so what I advocate for is the drafting of a new constitution. I've actually, with a high-level group of scholars, historical figures even, to come up with what I want to do is publish, and it's not doing it. I'm just the vessel. Have a website where Nigerians can say, here's a model constitution that we could, see if we can agree on this, and have the nation discuss a new constitution that's free and fair and equitable and that preserves human rights and respects life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. That's possible. And I think Nigerians from all over the country, from all walks of life, even those that are throttled, like the Iranians that are celebrating in the streets now that the Ayatollah is dead. Believe me, in the North, if some of these imams disappeared, there would be celebrations in the streets. If you got a free and fair election, a ballot for a new constitution that respected human life and dignity, I think it would totally change the game. So I want to talk about the future. I want to talk about what's possible, and not in the terms of daydreams, but how to get there. And this is how you get there. You start a movement, you draft a new constitution, and then you make it too big. You make it where the Trump recognizes it, and he will at the right time. Look, he's looking for this in Iran right now. Where's the new government? Where's the new leaders? We took out the old ones. Where's this movement? If there's a movement, It'll be effective and it'll work. Just watch.
I hope so, and I pray for a better Nigeria and a better Africa. And talk about the Constitution. I don't want to give my opinion, but somebody watching me now may be thinking, but why is this friend of Nigeria taking a lead on such a critical issue that should be done by Nigerians? Is he advocating the white savior mentality?
Absolutely not. Like I said, I'm just a vessel. And look, let me tell you something, and I'm going to say it, and I'll keep saying it if anybody asks. I'm not chasing clout, and I'm not chasing. I was actually had a much more peaceful life 6 months ago before anybody knew who I was. I will use what God has put before me to accomplish what He's given me to do, and I look forward to someday riding off into the sunset and not being the guy that's always doing podcasts on a Sunday afternoon. So this isn't about me. God has given me a platform and a calling to speak the truth, and I will gladly step aside, step down, and hand it off to a Nigerian that will take the torch if God tells me that's the person. If they demonstrate that I can't bring this change, but I can help, I can speak the truth, I can build websites, I can give people platforms, I can give them a voice, I can help. But let me tell you, I haven't saved anybody. If anything, this has saved me. This has given me a purpose. This has given me a reason to keep going in life is because God's using me in this. I have a savior. I represent him. But like I said, I'll be a vessel. I don't think a Nigerian person can set up a website right now with an alternative constitution and get away with it. But I'll be that safe space where people can have this conversation if that's my calling. But it's not about me. It doesn't have my name on it. I don't care if I'm ever recognized for it. It just needs to be done. And until somebody else is doing it, you got me.
Harden not your hearts if you hear the voice of the Lord calling on you. Is that what you're doing?
I'm just taking it step by step as the Lord leads. Honestly, I never set out to go to Nigeria. It was sort of an accident. I never set out to fall in love with the place. I never set out to visit an IDP camp. It was an unexpected detour. But God's called me, and I know too much to not do something about it.
And now it appears you don't even get to sleep at night because of an accident and God's call.
I can sleep. I sleep like a baby, in fact, because it's not as many hours I'd like, but I leave it all on the field. I got nothing weighing me down when I go to bed because I've done all I can. I'll look forward to doing more the next day, but God's given me peaceful sleep. That's the fruit of the Spirit in love, joy, peace. When you are obedient to God and follow his will, he can platform even like me. He can provide resource to somebody like me that's flat broke, to be honest with you. I put everything I have into this, but God keeps it going. And he gives me peace in the middle of it. And that's available to anybody. If you just call out to God through Jesus Christ, you can have the same thing. You can sleep like a baby in the middle of all this. That's a promise.
How many times have you seen on the media that you are disintegrating or causing trouble in Nigeria?
That's funny. I see it all the time. By speaking the truth. If a regime,
the other person who says that doesn't believe you're speaking the truth, isn't it? He believes.
But say that. I challenge you. Tell me one thing I've said that's not true. Tell me seriously. If my motto in life is correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not going to argue something if you can prove that it's wrong. I will switch immediately. I'll do for it. These people, and again, they're drones. They get their talking points. They go on and say, no, you're lying. And I'll say, please, tell me what you think I've said that's not true. And once has anybody ever replied to that. So if the truth, look at Nazi Germany, who was that? There was a Lutheran pastor, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He spoke the truth at an unpopular time. He was martyred for it. Heck, why did they kill Jesus? Because he spoke truth to power. He called out the Pharisees. He didn't respect them because they weren't respectable. And they killed them for it. So they all attack me. They'll label me all kinds of things. But if a regime can't sell the truth, they don't deserve to stand at all.
Let's look at this. You say in the book that the diaspora... I love that. Let's talk about this. The diaspora of 20 million Nigerians scattered across the world sends $20 billion home every year, and more than the country earns from oil. They are building schools, funding businesses, and keeping families alive. For the viewers watching us now and trying to understand the scale of this influence, how should they put it when they see that such financial power is going to Nigeria from the diaspora, but that same diaspora cannot influence governance at home? How should they square this out?
Well, it's divide and conquer. It's also out of sight, out of mind, I think, a lot of it. And again, the further separated people are from it, the more narrow they can focus on those issues that really drive them. So a lot of that goes to the Biafra movement. A lot of it goes to Nnamdi Kanu, things like that, and which is fine. Uh, there's never been a spark of leadership or a compelling cause to unite the voice of the diaspora. It's happened. And I think this is a historic moment. I think you're going to see the sleeping giant wake up. I'm sure working like heck to get it done. A lot of people are. But when you can lay out the case and steps and say, if we stand together, this is what's possible, they get very excited. And so that's what I'm saying is this is possible. We can have this. This can, if we stand together, all humans who value truth and justice, but mostly the Nigerians, the African diaspora, it can flex and it'll make a difference that's felt around the world.
When I spoke to Stephen Osemwengi, the president of Save Nigeria Group last week, we had this question and we're wondering how African diaspora can have a voice in the management of African affairs, just like the diaspora of any other country or continent. The Israeli diaspora, Indian, Chinese, even Latin American countries, they play a critical role in their countries. Is working solo, country by country, a problem for the African diaspora, do you think?
That's a good. I haven't really thought about it.
You're still focused on Nigeria.
Yeah, well, one of the problems with the African diaspora and Nigerian diaspora is the spirit of tribalism, which can be very divisive. It can be very exclusive. It can, for lack of a better term, it can be downright racist and pretty toxic. I've seen it on both sides. They're receiving it. I started going to Nigeria. My spiritual father, and most of my first trips were in the Delta region. And my spiritual father was a proud Igbo man, and I have a great affinity for that. I like my Nigerian family, and I get attacked for that because I'm affiliated with Igbo people. I get attacked for that mercilessly. They're like dogs by the rest of Nigeria, and it's not right. They're among the most bright and entrepreneurial, incredible, faithful, warm, hospitable people that I've ever met on the face of the earth, and they're treated like dogs by people from the tribe from Nigeria. So that's a big problem. And what's the solution? Well, in a logical sense, it's that covenant of common cause I've spelled out. But beyond that, as a person of Christian faith, which the majority of the Nigeria are by far, in Christ there is no Jew or Greek or slave or free or Yoruba or Fulani or Hausa or Igbo. That's not something that we should divide ourselves over. It's a family, it's a culture, it's something to celebrate, but it's not something to stand on and throw stones at the others. That's a huge problem in the diaspora and in Africa in general that needs to get grown. It's a stronghold in the path of progress.
So how do you think that can work? I want to get your perception on getting this forward. I know you're struggling and collaborating with Nigerians to get Nigerians together, but then there is Africa.
I grew up in an interesting period in American history after the civil rights movement of the 60s. I was born in 1970. But my grandfather was a man from the South, and he was racist. That's the culture he grew up in. And he made no bones about it. It was just, I like chocolate, and I like fried chicken, and I hate black people. That's my grandfather was that way. And it was repulsive. My father was he grew up under that, but he was a broad-minded man, and he would use the language, but it wasn't in his heart. But I saw in my generation go from that being the norm to that being the culture to being gone. There is nobody in my generation that I bet legitimately has a racist bone in their body. It was just the culture just shifted. It was no longer acceptable. We don't allow this anymore. It's not okay. We're bigger than that. And it's just like that.
So what lessons or frameworks can we get from there to transpose into the context we're talking about?
It's not inborn. It's not the default. It's not necessary. It's not wholesome, and it's not good to have that attitude. It's actually part of the divide and conquer strategy that's holding everybody down. And I have great friends from I think every tribe, as far as I know. I've been offered chieftaincies and I don't know how many dozens of tribes. And you know what? If you just have a with somebody, a different tribe, they can quickly be your best friend until you find out that, oh no, they're Yoruba, we can't do this. It's stupid. And look, everybody's got grievances and wounds. It goes deep. I get it. As a white man that has visited the South and has Igbo friends, I've been attacked. I can't imagine how bad it is in Nigeria for somebody that's actually there. But put that aside. Don't let the wounds keep you hostile. And it's not about revenge. It's not about settling the score. It's not about love keeps no record of wrongs. And if you love your neighbor, you're called to let it go, grow past it. Tribe is family. It's not a fight.
So with that said, I understand that there are things that we can be doing to get together and move forward. But as somebody who is in constant communication and engagement with the Nigerian diaspora, what do you think they should be doing, concrete things that they should be doing to help change the security situation at home?
Right now, the most important thing they can do is that's the beauty of it. They're not just at home. They're here in the United States. Donald Trump, this Congress are going to make historical decisions regarding the future of Nigeria. And there's a narrative war. Speak up, call your congressman, join the coalition, support organizations that are doing stuff to get the narrative straight here and to get the truth to the desk of the president and to ensure that, for example, the Smith-Moore bill that's in front of Congress now, make sure it gets, because that's teeth. That's something that the diaspora here can do that nobody back home can do. That's a starting point. The other thing is this: you're safe here, whether you're in the United States or Great Britain, wherever you are, you're relatively safe. So post, speak on podcasts, write the letter to the editor, keep speaking the truth, tell the stories, tell the truth, share the history. There's no such thing as darkness. It's the absence of light. It's why dissent. That's why they kill people who speak up. That's why they put Nnamdi Kanu in prison. That's why they stopped the teaching of history. They can't stand the light. So shine it. The darkness will go away.
When you talk to them, January 2027, I think it's March now, general elections in Nigeria. So when you talk to the Nigerian diaspora, how involved are they?
Starting to get pretty, you see it. People, you see, I've had a couple different Nigerian presidential candidate wannabes reach out to me. And
you are becoming a godfather in Nigerian politics.
Well, it is what it is. I'm the earth shaker. You start to pay attention. And what's interesting is there's the camps and loyalties, and but the general vibe is the leader that they're looking for hasn't stepped up yet. And so it's going to be interesting. As right now, there's a vacuum, and there's a lot of scared people, and there's a lot of functionaries and career politicians, but there's not a lot of leadership on the opposition side that I'm seeing. I think that's going to change. I think it's going to change very soon. And when that person or those people that stand up fearlessly to seek change, when they step up, support them, because it takes some balls to do that. Come on. Let's back the leaders that are truly going to make it change and not just talk about it.
So when you look at the current political scene and all those who are projecting to be candidates, because I know primaries would be very soon, are any of them concerned about this security problem you are so concerned about?
Well, when you see the tentacles and the evil reach of the APC and the Tinubu administration and how if they can't bribe you, they'll threaten you. And if they can't threaten you, they'll just go ahead and kill you.
Strong allegations again.
I just tell it like it is. But there's a lot of fear, a lot of people that are chilled to the bone. And so we'll see. It's interesting times. But I think is going to have liberation. I think we're close. But look what it took. Nigeria without bombs. I don't know that it's possible in Nigeria without people getting killed. People standing up, but they protest, they march. If the government starts shooting, you got to keep marching. You got to keep standing up. Freedom was never, ever been free. It's never been free, and it sucks. It's not going to come from a white man. I see two Nigerians saying, well, when's Trump going to come and do this? When's he going to come and give us a new constitution? When is he going to come and take Tinubu away? And I was like, what? So here you are wanting another colonial overlord to come and you're not worthy and you're a victim and stop it. Stand up, grow up, and take the bull by the horns. If you want to be a great nation, then be a great nation. Then you'll get Trump's backing, but he's not going to drag you across that. Stand up, fight with your words, with the truth, with love, with peace. Like Martin Luther King Jr., stand up. And keep standing up. And if they knock you down, keep standing up. But if they kill you, then other people keep standing up. That's how you bring down tyranny. There's no other way. Even in Iran.
Do you know why we're having this conversation?
What?
Do you know why you and I are having this conversation?
Why?
Because you said the other side kills mercilessly and without reason.
It is why. That's what they do.
So they can kill everybody, even if they come out on the streets to march.
But here's the thing, it's going to be costly. But the fact is, in this day and age, with social media, with the media attention, they can't get away with that very long. It's just not going to. You have Nigeria, there's too many bright people. Nigeria makes too many movies, too much music, much diaspora, too many coders, too many influencers that the government can get away with that. The world's going to be the free world, the peaceful world is going to be on their side. Look, nobody's jumping in to defend Iran now, is there? There might be some people in the background talking about it, but they know that regime was evil, bottom line. And the United States is perfectly justified to take those bastards out. And if the Nigerian regime starts gunning people down who are only calling for freedom and calling to end the genocide, guess what? I don't want that to happen. I wish it could happen otherwise. I wish that there could just be a free vote and the bad guys would walk away. God, I wish that would happen. I wish Trump could send a laser beam, but he's not going to do that. The people need to rise up. And they need to do it with love. They need to do it with peace. They do it under the vision of the new Nigeria. They need to do it with justice. They need to do mercy. They need to do it with fairness, but they need to do it without fear, because that's the only way they'll ever achieve that new Nigeria. It's not going to be handed to you. And if it's handed to you, it'll be worthless.
About the elections, you said you hope Trump could help Nigeria have transparent elections. And when I hosted Stephen here recently, he said there is no hope for elections in Nigeria because they are totally corrupt and rigged. His opinion, not mine. What role do you think President Trump can play at point to have free and fair elections in Nigeria?
I don't want to underestimate the guy. In fact, I had just drafted and am transmitting a memo to President Trump, and I posted it online, specifically calling for this very thing. How he would make it happen, that's not my area of expertise. I know that there is a well-known anatomy of election fraud that if he asked somebody to come up with a plan, it wouldn't be too awful hard. It might take some manpower, but it's known exactly how the elections in Nigeria are stolen. It's known, it's documented. And so there's a solution. That's not my job to figure out, but Trump could done without problem.
Let's see whatever is going to happen from the American side. President Trump has made it very clear that he's going to extinguish terrorism in Nigeria. He's currently doing what he calls extinguishing the mullahs under the Iranian regime. Let's see how that is going to play out. Nothing is sure yet on what is happening in Iran. But looking at the Nigerian equation, have you established any relationships between the Muslims in Iran and the Muslims in Nigeria, or as you call them, in Nigeria and Iran? I ask this because I saw demonstrations in the north of Nigeria.
I haven't dug deep into it. There are numerous reports, and it's not like something they've hidden, where the Nigerian government has cooperated with the Iranian government for various things. Recently, Sheikh came out and demanded that the government work closer with such peace-loving nations as Iran. There's listed Iran as one. Oh, yeah, got to work with them. They're great. But like I said, if I were to go deeper than that, I couldn't provide much depth. I haven't researched it deeply. I make bold claims when I have the truth, but when I don't, observe. I'm not saying a thing because I don't know. If I knew, I would say it strongly.
I like that. So in your book, again, you say in Nigeria alone, an estimated 150,000 Chinese nationals operate in the mining sector, yes, many illegally. They pay bribes to local officials. They pay terrorists for access to mineral deposits. They extract billions in gold, lithium, and rare earths and ship it out through smuggling networks that run through Niger to Dubai. I have a few questions here. Have you this information with any other sources out there in the world?
The bulk of that information comes from the Nigerian government itself. There was a report before their Congress. One of their top officials presented a report about the looting of minerals. Said it was about at least $9 billion a year. And if the government admits that, it's probably more. But
a member of the government is a politician who could get any kind of information and use it for political purposes in Congress. So,
and about 10%. Look, to really fully research that with the resources I have is impossible and would get me killed. I've called on, in fact, it's in the Smith-Moore bill is to shut that down. But I've been to I've seen the mounds of dirt where the locals say there were people there, they killed them all, and then the miners showed up. And there's
the Chinese embassy in Nigeria disputed this allegation.
But the other thing, Good Luck Jonathan is the one that in his living room said that look into that, and I have. You will not meet.
You have not. He said he should look into it, but you have not. You say
no, I have not gone to the mining sites myself. I've actually sent people to video the mining sites.
I've gone to the mining sites and seen the exploitation of the minerals doesn't give the chain.
There is documented evidence, trucks being pulled over headed to, that were Chinese nationals. There's a lot. It's not speculation. Again, I don't have the details to be able to paint it down to the penny and to the exact. Nobody does. But the U.S. Congress thinks that the evidence that is solid enough is more strong enough that they put it in a bill and are calling for it to be shut down. Again, Jonathan is the one that told me about it. I didn't ask him for his sources. I've seen the mounds of dirt, and the evidence is out there. When it wasn't a politician, it was a bureaucrat, is my recollection, that presented those findings. This published report that's available online from the Nigerian government produced report on the looting of the minerals in the north. So all of that, there's more than smoke there. There's fire there.
There is more than sufficient information out there that the Chinese are exploiting natural resources across the continent in ways that are not sustainable. But to tie this directly to the supply chain, is that not a problem?
China's not there for any good purpose. You're not anywhere they go in the world. They're the most soulless, heartless, predatory extractors on the face of the earth is the Chinese. They will corrupt anybody. They will steal anything, because if you're not Chinese, you're inferior. And the Chinese government denies it. Gee whiz.
The American government likely has evidence of this. That is why it is in the bill. Why should we trust the American government or the Chinese government? They are both government.
I am trusting what I've seen with my own eyes. I'm trusting what the people that are in the states, in Nasarawa State, in Plateau State, the local leaders, the people that are there every day, what they tell me, that they live. I'm trusting what good luck Jonathan told me in his living room. I'm trusting that at least the gist of the certified Nigerian government report that's admitting this. And numerous contemporary news reports, other investigative reports that all point to this. There's nothing anywhere on any record that says it's not happening. No one's denying it, other than the Chinese. Come on.
Exploitation of the natural resources is one, but using the natural resources as the source of financing the terror is where it's Chinese.
It's not that, here, go kill people. Here's the terrorists that control this area. I'm going to pay them rent. I'm going to pay them to not attack us. It's the terrorists in these areas are like the mafia with a protection racket. They're paying rent to the terrorists. They're paying protection money to the terrorists. It's not that they're saying, here, let me write a check to Boko Haram so you can go massacre more people. Maybe they are, because they do benefit, because after the villages are wiped out, the next thing that comes in is the miners. I don't necessarily think that's purely opportunistic. And that, over time, when people that don't care that there's a slaughter that are making more money, I'm not going to say, I just know bad, it's evil. The result is dead people, and it be stopped.
How do you think the American government can stop this? They have included it in the bill, but how can they execute this?
Let's let them figure it out. So first of all, true national security, there's a network there. If the corruption is stopped, all of this will stop, because there are traditional rulers in all these areas. Sultan of Sokoto, most of it's happening in his domain. Why hasn't he spoken up against it? He has imams, he has followers. He's 108 million followers all over the place that think he's the Pope and the King rolled up into one. He knows all about it. Why hasn't he asked for it to stop? So that's where sanctions come in. That's where the international investigation comes in. That's where prosecution comes in, and security and protection of wiping out the bad guys. That's how you stop it. Is there another way? No. You got to find culprits, and you got to take them out of the equation one way or another. Then it'll stop. And then you can do it, do ethical extraction, where guarantee that percentage of it goes back to the community. You can put the transactions on blockchain. You can make it transparent. There are other nations that are doing this. I'm not talking pie in the sky stuff. I'm talking where there's a will, there's a way. And if the Nigerians stand up to enforce their will, there's a way to have a free and fair and equitable nation. But you have to have the will to get it done.
And you are aware that recently Glencore was sanctioned because they paid bribes in Nigeria, Congo, and Cameroon. And Glencore is not a Chinese company. And how do you think the Americans are going to stop it by legislation in the United States?
I don't think it's going to stop by legislation in the United States. That's why I read into what that bill says. Stopping it means stopping it. Stopping the Islamic regime of Iran wasn't done by legislation in the United States. Ending the narco republic of Venezuela wasn't have a unique opportunity with the president of the United States that knows how to use his power to accomplish good things on this earth, and he's willing. If that bill passes, and if he says, I'm going to stop the illegal mineral trade in Nigeria, if I was an illegal miner, I would get the hell out of there and go home as fast as I could.
Do you think the bill is going to pass? At least you've spoken to representatives and senators in DC.
Yeah, we're sure pushing it. There's a narrative war. It's hard when the other side is spending millions of dollars to lie and to lobby. And that's what they're doing. They are spending millions of dollars, Nigerian taxpayer money, to lie and to lobby. That money could have been building schools for displaced people. That money could have been providing food and clothing and shelter to the 50,000 that are stranded in Cameroon. But they use that money to lie about it and cover it up. That's despicable.
When you speak to representatives and senators in DC, do you think they are going to vote this bill into law?
I don't have a crystal ball.
I think you talk to them, and
I don't talk. Oh, that's the point. I talk to the ones that are sponsoring it. I talk to the ones that are behind it, and they're sure fighting hard.
But what do they tell you about the others? Because I ask this purposely because you've mentioned Biden and Obama on the wrong side of history. And if Biden and Obama are in the wrong side of history, as you said, regarding this story, why would Democrats, or why should you hope that Democrats will support this bill?
I'm not saying they are. Some will. Historically, some of the most radical Democrats have been strongest in favor of good things in Nigeria. Sheila Jackson Lee, late representative, extreme wing Democrat, was a friend of the Nigerian people. I believe there's hope for that. And I'm working to not make it a partisan issue. It shouldn't be a Republican Democrat thing, which is a challenge when Trump's involved because the Democrats have what's called Trump derangement syndrome. He could say the sky is blue and they would come out in force and say, it's green, everybody knows. So Trump being a champion in Nigeria is good, but also has a downside. The Democrats are going to take the other side by just instinct. But I think there's hope. And it's just about the truth. It's about reaching out. I'm planning to do a congressional briefing. I'm working with Ambassador Sam Brownback and others and the Save Nigeria group to have a congressional meeting either late this month or early next month. We're going to invite people from both sides. We're going to invite the media, and we're just going to lay out the facts. I would love to head up another congressional delegation and take them to the hidden concentration camps. I'd love to take them to Sokoto to meet Nnamdi Kanu. That would shake things up. But we'll see. It's a fight. And that's why I say, if you're in the diaspora, you're in the United States, call your congressman and tell them to vote for it. It is existential. It's important. This bill needs to pass.
Two last questions for you, and then I'll let you go. First question, why do you think Democrats should vote in favor of a bill to President Trump when he takes national security advice from a screwdriver seller in Nigeria?
Guess what? I'm a handyman from Blanco. We have a little construction company. I actually go and swing a hammer from time to time and work on construction jobs. Why should Trump take the advice of a handyman from a small town in Texas? Gosh, why should he listen to a guy that wears a red shirt with a black sport coat? You can describe anybody, anything. That fellow, the screwdriver salesman, has an impeccable background and very solid credentials. And his work is exemplary and is respected. The fact that the left-wing propaganda arm of the Democrat Party that is biased and bought by the Nigerian government called the New York Times, the fact that they call it a screwdriver salesman doesn't diminish the reality of his credibility.
So the screwdriver salesman is Mr. Emeka Emmanuel, and he lives in Nigeria. He has a master's degree in conflict resolution. He leads a civil society organization and been researching on this issue for a very long time. His organization recently issued a report, and I will host him in the next few days. Maybe the next episode is going to be with him to discuss the findings in their report.
And that's the whole point of the narrative war. And the money that the Nigerian government is spending on lobbying and spin is paying reporters and twisting arms like that to get people like him discredited. For the New York Times to call him a screwdriver salesman to diminish his credibility is nothing short of unethical, degenerate character assassination. They intentionally discredited the man on purpose to diminish what he was saying because they don't like the truth. The New York Times is an enemy of the truth.
And we would have Emeka here to discuss the findings.
See if he can sell you some screwdrivers. That seems to be his only expertise, according to the New York Times. Right? You should talk about.
I hope he sends over some screwdrivers. We need them. It's springtime and construction.
I would buy one of his screwdrivers.
Construction work is going to start off very soon. Then the other question to you is: you recently put an advert of a memo you are sending to President Trump. Can you tell us what is in that document? Because you were wondering if you should make that public.
So mikearnold.org, see it on the bottom, it's posted. I posted the memo to Trump. And I now have the ability to get things in front of him. So this isn't the handyman from Blanco that wrote something. I mean, this is getting to the highest circles. And I know it's being read by the Tinubu administration. They came out and name-checked me the other day for something I posted. So to know I'm inside their devious little brain. But the memo, it outlines the case. And the first point is this: President Trump, here's your big win. Here's your Nobel Prize. You can do in Nigeria what you've done in Iran, or what you're doing in Iran, but you can do it without shot and anger. And that is just simply enforce a free and fair election in Nigeria. And the people will take it from there. You can bring a regime change. You can bring prosperity. You can make Nigeria America's greatest ally in Africa, if not the world. And all you have to do is give them freedom of choice. You have to give them their voice. You have to give them their vote. That's how he wins his Nobel Prize. Not through bloodshed, but through peace and democracy. He can transform Nigeria with just ensuring the sanctity of the election.
If it is not through bloodshed, then Iran must have disqualified him from having the Nobel Peace Prize. Don't you think so?
No, Iran. They're all different cases. They're different stories. They're different. There was no way to do it in Iran. Tried, but he had to drop bombs. What I'm telling him, it's not necessary to drop bombs in Nigeria. If you think the uprising that's happening in Iran is great, just wait till the people in Nigeria feel that stranglehold lifted off their throats. When they stand up, it'll make the uprising in Iran look like a picnic. I think it'll be more like Nepal. We'll see. I'm not calling for that, but when the people finally realize that they can stand and that the world's got back and that freedom is theirs for the taking, and it's never free, but I think they'll stand up and they'll take it. I think they need to. Otherwise, they should just go ahead and quit trying and start bowing 5 times a day when the imam calls you, because that's your only other alternative.
I wonder how many other African countries are hoping and expecting that President Trump would do the same.
It'd be like dominoes.
Dictators.
I'll leave it with this. When I first went to Nigeria in 2010, I grew up Lutheran. I did not grow up with charismatic terminology. So when I say this is a prophetic word, it's not just because somebody said it. I believe God spoke this to me. That what man has long called the dark continent, that he is raising up to be the continent of light in our generation. And Nigeria is the vanguard. I believe that's what we're seeing here is a battle of kingdoms, and that the kingdom of darkness, when I started going, it was in 2010, only nation on earth where radical Islam was being pushed back. It was the only nation on earth. Obama held it. And then the globalists, the communists, and then have gotten a stranglehold. But that prophecy still stands. And I believe that what we're seeing is the goal line defense of a despicable enemy, and that the side of light and truth and justice and freedom is going to score a goal in Nigeria that's going to echo around the world. And Nigeria will lead the way, and Africa will be transformed because of the light shining in Nigeria. That's what I believe, and that's what I'm working for.
In Epicenter, you say Nigeria is the epicenter of the jihadist movement, and if it is not controlled, it's going to destroy the world. Epicenter, you also say Nigeria, if the jihad is controlled, is going to be the light of the world and the center of gravity, especially because Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa and has a bright future.
That's right. This is a battle for the control of the future. The trajectory of Nigeria now it's the 6th largest nation on earth. By 2050, they say it'll be the 3rd largest. By 2050, 1 in 13 human beings will be Nigerian. It makes more movies every year than Hollywood. Its music dominates the streaming charts. Everywhere that people go, they succeed. And as the rest of the world is aging and shrinking, Nigeria has the resources and the youth to sustain it all. And so the trajectory of Nigeria is to global more and more influence, period. It's going to be an influential part of the future. The fight is not just for today, it's for that future. That's why this generation of Nigerians is so important. As Nigeria, so goes Africa and the world in the coming years. It is the epicenter, and it is important.
Thank you so much, Mike Arnold, for joining the Beyond Africa podcast today. It's been an interesting conversation, and I believe that most of our viewers have learned a lot, and our perspectives are changing, and others are going to join the movement for the reconfiguration of Nigeria and the reconfiguration of Africa.
Awesome. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching the Beyond Africa podcast. It's been me, your host, Ngalim Bernard. Stay tuned, subscribe, share, comment. Tell me what you think about this conversation, because as usual, we are bringing more. We are not relenting. We are bringing more, and we are counting on you to make sure that the system, the algorithm, reads this podcast as an important podcast for Africans, both on the continent and in the diaspora. We are striving to bring the best of the best to you, and we are doing that without any reservations. Thank you, and see you in the next episode of the Beyond Africa podcast. Thank you so much. Please